Wednesday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock, time for Sports4CLE. Hope your holidays were great. Browns getting ready for a win and you're in primetime showdown against the Jets, Cleveland Browns Stadium tomorrow, 8 o'clock. Browns are also beat up. Let's take a look at the game status report. Came out a little bit ago. Corey Bajorquez, punter, doubtful. Amari Cooper, questionable. Marquise Goodwin, questionable. Kicker, D-Hop, out. Okunrankwo, out. Thornhill, still questionable. Did practice on a limited basis for the first time in a while. And Anthony Walker, the linebacker, out as well. Let's welcome in Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram, as well as brownzone.com. And Scott, it's more of the same. Punter gone, kicker gone. You know, the concerning one, though, is Amari Cooper, kind of banged up. He's played through so much. I would imagine he's out there, even if it's at 90, 85%.
Yeah, I would too, Dave. I mean, last year he played the last month of the season with that core muscle injury that required surgery afterward, and he wasn't himself, but he was out there because he thought he should be. And I've talked to Amari about this plenty of times. He just feels like if you're on the field, there's an opportunity to make plays and to help your team, to help yourself. Just, you know, like he wasn't 100% for that Washington game a year ago, and I think he had 3 touchdowns. He goes, what if I had just sat out? I wouldn't have had those 3 touchdowns. So it's important to him to play. Obviously, it's a huge game, chance to clinch a playoff spot, and he's coming off the record-setting game against Houston. So I expect him to be out there. I just don't know how close to 100% he'll be.
All right. Along those lines, a little bit earlier this afternoon, Amari Cooper named AFC Offensive Player of the Week. The numbers look like this: 11 receptions, the franchise record, 265 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns. Scott, it's been pretty quick and amazing the way he's developed a chemistry. I mean, he and Joe Flacco look like they've been playing together a couple of years.
Yeah, it's fascinating because I don't dismiss all the talk about chemistry and timing between a quarterback and receiver. I think that is important. And you see guys that play together over years. They have a, you know, kind of a secret language, and they know where each other's going to be and what each other's thinking. So I think there is legitimacy to that gets better over time. And, you know, you compare it to Deshaun Watson. Well, why did it take so much time for timing? You know, for them to get this chemistry. And we talked about it last year and this year. So I do think that's a real thing. But also, if you have a quarterback that puts the ball exactly where he's supposed to, and a receiver that goes and finds it and gets it and catches it, that makes up for a lot of kind of the lack of time together, right? And I think that's what you have with Flacco and Cooper. The ball's where Amari wants it, and he goes and gets it, and Joe knows where to put it, and he knows he throws a good ball, you know, a catchable ball, according to Cooper. So I think it's kind of more about those two guys than it's not important to have timing. I just think they're playing at such a high level together right now.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Flacco was asked.
We talked about it a little bit after the game this past week. It seems like every week, you know, you look at the game and you're like, man, this is a big one. This is a big one, and it's just another one of those. I think we just, once again, we can worry about that when the game's all said and done, but just go out there and focus on winning.
What do you think it could be like Thursday night with a chance of clinching the playoff?
I haven't really thought about it, you know, to be honest with you, how they would kind of take it in. But it could definitely be a really cool moment. Just have to go out there and make it happen on Thursday.
And Scott, I don't think that he's not just downplay. I honestly think that's kind of how he approaches things because he's been around and been in those situations.
I think that's exactly right. It's not just, you know, that's the coach speak, right? 1-0 and whatever. He's been to the Super Bowl. Right? He's been to the playoffs a bunch. That, you know, clinching a spot is not that big a deal. I mean, it's important, obviously. It's a first step in where you're trying to go. But, you know, I don't think they're going to pop champagne for clinching a playoff spot. And I'm sure they didn't do that in Baltimore all those times that he went with Baltimore. So it's just the next step. And, you know, maybe he hasn't been here long enough to fully appreciate what I think that scene's going to be like at the stadium on Thursday night. Right? Chance to clinch only the second playoff spot since 2002. The last time they clinched one was during COVID, so the stadium was not full. I think this has the potential to be a giant party, and maybe he just hasn't thought about that.
All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason for the first time today.
Oh, hi, Dave. This is Danielle. Hey, I was wondering, what are your thoughts on the new kicker and punter, and then with DTR being ruled out for the rest of the season? Who do you think we should go and get for another quarterback? Do you think we should try and get Dobbs or Bissett or Cam Newton or who at this point? Because there's not many guys left to pick from. So what do you guys think? All right, go Browns. Woof, woof.
All right, as always, appreciate all of voicemails. All right, Scott, we'll break those down into three parts. Let's start with the kicker, Riley Patterson. So take a look at these career numbers. So he's got an almost 88% field goals made, 13 to 14 from 20 to 29, 26 to 27, 30 to 39, 16 to 19, 40 to 49, 3 of 6, 50 plus, 87 of 90 extra points. So he was with the Lions earlier this season, kicked for the Jaguars in the playoffs last year. So he's made some big kicks. Missed a couple extra points in a short field goal, and they kind of pushed him to the side in Detroit. Given where we're at in the season, he's a pretty good option.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, part of the reason it seemed like part of the reason they cut him in Detroit was they needed to clear roster space. And, they had a kicker on the practice squad that they could elevate. If the Browns hadn't signed him, maybe they tried to bring him back on on Detroit's practice squad. So, he kicked there until a week ago. So he's got the reps. It's not like you're bringing him off the couch. I like that a lot. The 3 for 6 from 50, Dustin Hopkins was the same. He was 50% from 50 yards before he got here this year. I don't think that's the end of the world. Now, the concern for me would be he's kicked in Detroit and in Jacksonville, right? So it's a dome and it's warm. Now he did it. It's, with Detroit, you go to Green Bay, you go to Chicago, so it's not like he's never kicked outside. Dustin Hopkins didn't have a whole lot of, he kicked in Washington, but he wasn't like a cold weather guy. So I think that's probably as good as you can do at this stage in the season.
All right, and we move on. And so the new punter is a guy that is Matt Hawk. It's pronounced Hawk. Could very well end up being the starter against the Jets. Now, he did kick for Bubba Ventrone in Indianapolis last year, 70 punts, almost 45 yards a kick gross average. Important to note here, and Bubba Ventrone knows him very well. 28 of his 70 punts, so that's 40%, were inside the 20. That is huge when you're talking about the Browns defense and what they want to do. Pin the other team back, give them long fields. If you do that, this defense isn't going to give up many points.
Yeah, that's important. And to me, even more important is the time with Bubba Ventrone. He knows what he's got. He knows what kind of system they're running. He knows all of it. He knows how he wants him to hold. I think that'll ease the transition from the snapper hold kick. And I don't know how long, but Horkowitz is doubtful, so obviously he's not expected to play. It doesn't feel like as significant an injury as Hopkins, so hopefully you get Horkowitz back, if not the finale, for the start of the playoffs. Because he's had a really good year, too. We focus so much on Dustin Hopkins, but Horkowitz has had a really strong year flipping the field and helping that defense, like you mentioned, and winning that field position battle. So you got to come in and you got to have a guy that there's not too much of a drop-off, right? And I think the same for kicker and punter. You hope there's not too much of a drop-off. Now, you probably have to change how you coach a little bit. Stefanski probably won't go for 55-yarder, which he felt automatic almost with Dustin Hopkins. You probably don't do that with a kicker who's brand new to you. So there'll be an adjustment, but, hopefully the Browns can come to that playoff spot and then figure out if they can get everybody healthy.
All right, the last part of it is quarterback. DTR's on the injured reserve, so he's done. They've elevated P.J. Walker to the can't get Brissett, can't get anybody who is on anybody's roster at this point in time. Those things aren't going to happen. I don't know that there's anybody out there. I'm with you. I'd love to find somebody that I felt better about than what. I mean, if something happens, it may end up being P.J. Walker.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to sign a third guy, right? Probably to the practice squad. There's no urgency to do it this week because they only had one real practice. It's a short week. So much time doing other things. You don't have time to acclimate somebody. He doesn't have time to get used to everything. So you bring him in for the long week ahead of that finale. But, I mean, PJ Walker's been here most of the season. So or pretty much since week 1. So it would make sense if there was something to Flacco that you just go with PJ Walker and you hope, and he's won a couple games for you. I don't know who that third guy would be. Is Kellen Mond? Can you go get him? Is he still on a practice squad? He's got some familiarity, but hasn't played much. Or do you go, I think Nick Foles is still out there, and, he's a Joe Flacco type, right? He's been in this situation before. You just hope it doesn't come to that.
Scott Petrick and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Talk a little bit more about Joe Flacco in this offense. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Ooh, holiday gold! The $20 scratch-off?
It has 100 times multiplier. I could win $1 million.
Psych! I got merry and bright.
No fair.
It has a 200 times multiplier. I could win $2 million.
Game on the back.
Game on the back. Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game.
We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrick from the Elyria Chronicle Telegram as well as brownzone.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Morning, guys. This is Jim from Rochester. Watched the game yesterday. It was a great performance. Coach Stefanski, please stop taking your foot off the gas. When you got a team down, you just need to push to the end. That's my only take from there. Again, I hope you guys have a nice Christmas. Talk to you later. Bye.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, I kind of get what Kevin Stefanski was thinking. Short week, beat-up team. I didn't have a problem with him pulling the starters. But when they started playing like XFL players, it was like, yeah, you need to get them back in there. So I know what the thought process was, and I'm glad. It was probably prompted a little bit by DTR getting banged up there. But, man, they got to – when they put the reserves in, they can't fall apart like that.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty, but I completely understand what Stefanski did, and I think he did the right thing. I mean, you can't.
Yep.
You don't want Myles Garrett or pick any big-name player rolling an ankle when you're up 29 against the Texans. Like, it just doesn't make sense. So I think that was the right thing, especially with the short week. Now, you don't expect the defense to give a touchdown, then you don't expect to miss the onside kick, and then the defense give another touchdown, right? Like, it all falls apart. If any of that doesn't happen, then it's not a discussion. You don't have to see the starters go back in. But you're right about the DTR factor. And it kind of escaped me because they put this, they went back to the starters. And I thought, okay, they're doing that because the gap had gotten closer, but also DTR couldn't go back in, I don't think. So that was part of it as well. And, yeah, you need those guys to play better. But, I don't fault Stefanski for that. I think he had the big picture in mind, and I think he assumed the game was in hand, which – really was. They were still up 14 even after all that. It just got uncomfortable for those, fans that aren't comfortable. You know what I mean? For anybody who's looking at the dark side, it became uncomfortable for a while.
Yeah, shades of the Jets a couple years ago with Joe Flacco as their quarterback. All right, kind of ironic. Browns can clinch with Joe Flacco against the Jets tomorrow. Team that decided not to sign him in the Jets. Flacco and Robert Saleh asked about Flacco's time with the Jets and then playing against the Browns.
We love Joe, first and foremost. Obviously, he spent a couple of years with him. Love him, love the way he prepares. Really pumped for him and the success he's having. But it's just a decision we made in terms of the quarterback room and the way we developed it over the course of OTAs and training camp. And it was just a decision we made.
Was he in the conversation at all when you were pivoting from Aaron between you and Joe?
Yeah, there's always going to be discussions. There was a bunch of guys that we talked about.
But I mean, was he specifically part of that conversation, or was that just not a fit in your guys' eyes?
Yeah, for sure. You know, I don't want to speak for Joe D on this one, but yeah, Joe Flacco has a soft spot with all of us.
How impressive is, I know you talked about it yesterday in the call, but what he's doing with Cleveland right now?
No, it's been great. You know, he's, you know, his Amari is making him we always joke around, you know, just make the quarterback a hero. And Amari's playing some great football. The run game, the O-line, defense is getting him the ball. And with each passing week, he's getting more and more confident. The team is getting more and more confident. And they're starting to hit stride at the perfect time. So they're, you know, they're galvanizing around it, and you can see it on tape.
Listen, man, you know, there's all kinds of things that happen throughout the course of a season and an off season and things like that. And I enjoyed my time while I was there, and you know, it is what it is. I'm happy to be where I am, that's for sure. Listen, there's 32 teams in the NFL. They're just another one of those teams. I got a lot of guys over there I really respect and had an awesome few years with in that locker room. So, a lot of respect for those guys.
Scott, he won't say it, but it would be a little. If he goes out and plays well, it would mean a little bit more to him. He'd never say that, but
yeah, I think so.
As a competitor.
Yeah, I mean, given the history, given the fact that they didn't call him, and there's reasons they didn't call him, right? The Browns situation is different. I mean, the Browns waited till November. You know, Aaron Rodgers gets hurt in the first quarter of that opener, but they had Zach Wilson, and he's a former number 2 pick. So, you know, it made sense to turn it over to him as opposed to going and get Joe Flacco then. Now, they did sign Trevor Siemian at some point. They started Tim Boyle. Like, that's where you can start to go, oh, you know, could you have added Flacco there? The Jets have a really good defense. They have some pieces on offense. Like, I think it's a similar situation to what the Browns have. They just haven't gotten the quarterback play that Flacco's given the Browns. And, you know, and Deshaun Watson did for a chunk of the time, and that helped get the Browns where they were when Flacco took over. So it's an easy comparison. You know, I think you can make an argument that the Jets screwed up by not signing Flacco. But I certainly think that he would be excited, just like Elijah Moore, right? The receiver that spent a couple of years there and wasn't happy in that second year. It would mean a little something extra to beat them and clinch the playoffs against the Jets.
All right, so take a look at this graph, and I can't explain it. So x-axis here, percentage of plays outside the pocket. Y-axis, EPA outside the pocket. Joe Flacco's up at the top, and Deshaun Watson's kind of in the middle, but it's amazing what he's been able to do outside of the pocket. Explain that one, because I got nothing.
Yeah. Well, so that looks like a smaller percentage of plays, right? Watson's out of the pocket more,
right,
but didn't have the same success rate that Joe does in limited opportunities. First of all, and we probably talked about it, Dave, the way Flacco moves has been a pleasant surprise to me. And I mean, I saw him play last year, but it didn't stand out to me that he moved well. You know, I mean, I was there week 2 in person. I saw him throw it great, but I don't remember going, oh, he moves pretty well. I mean, I watched him play all those years with the Ravens, and it was never he's going to get outside the pocket and beat you. But he looks pretty fresh. For 38, he's moving pretty well. And when you marry that with Kevin Stefanski's play-action scheme, the bootlegs, that gets him out in space, and that's just part of the offensive scheme that the Browns run. But we saw the 75-yard touchdown to Cooper. It's a hard play action, a big roll to the left, and it's Flacco outside the pocket, and he's got Cooper one-on-one, and it's that side of the field, and he makes a good throw. So we've just seen a plenty of examples of that designed. And then you see the off-schedule things where he keeps the play alive. He slides in the pocket just enough to find Njoku last week and a huge play on the winning drive against Jacksonville. You saw it with that David Bell touchdown the week before, where he slides and makes a throw on 4th down. So the movement skills have been better than I thought, and that graphic just shows you how effective he's been.
So if Flacco was asked just about the way the city has kind of taken to him.
The city's been unbelievable. I mean, I can't say enough about how welcoming everybody has been. especially that is the one strange part, I would say. Not necessarily putting on the uniform and playing, but just coming from Baltimore for most of my career and just seeing everybody out in your regular part of your day and how welcoming the city's been. Back to the surreal thing, that would probably be a good answer for that. It has definitely been a little bit surreal in terms of how people have treated me around here. That stuff always feels good, so hopefully we can keep it going for them.
Scott, if the football team is winning, the quarterback in this town is let me ask you this. David Njoku's kind of ascension has kind of coincided with Flacco kind of helping to unlock him. What have you seen from Njoku relative to Flacco coming and kind of unlocking that?
Yeah, that's interesting. I would say these are the plays that are designed, and Flacco knows how to execute them and execute them at a high level. I know Stefanski and Alex Van Pelt, the coordinator, they make it a priority to get Njoku the ball pretty much every week. I think it's Amari Cooper, and then it's David Njoku, especially after the loss of Nick Chubb, right? I really think that Njoku's number 2 on that list, and it hasn't always worked out that way, whether it's coverage, whether they need him in protection, whatever it is. Maybe it's a quarterback missing him, and it's tight windows. But Flacco has been able to get the ball to him more consistently than not. And you saw that great touchdown throw against Houston. I mean, he put the ball exactly where it had to be. And that's maybe, I would assume, most quarterbacks don't feel that confident to put the ball in that tight of a spot. And he tried earlier in the game. He was double coverage, and he threw the ball there. And it was a good throw. It was just the coverage was really tight. It was a tough catch for Njoku. But I think maybe when you throw to your tight end, it's tighter windows, it's compressed field, and Flacco doesn't care about that. And he just knows how to get guys the ball. Whether it's Njoku, whether it's Amari Cooper, whoever it is, Flacco knows how to get it to him.
I know you've written an article just kind of about Njoku ascending into that leadership role. Take us through that, what you found.
Yeah, I just think, the big picture look is how far he's come, right? He was 20 years old when he got here in 2017. They trade up to get him. Obvious immaturity issues. We saw that. We saw that in multiple ways. You saw that with multiple coaches, right? Freddie Kitchens made him a healthy scratch at the end of 2019 for a couple of games. Kevin Stefanski gets here, and Njoku kind of revealed last week that they butted heads, and it wasn't always smooth. And then they both kind of came to the realization that, hey, we're both going to be here, so we better figure this out, clear the air. And I don't know if that was a seminal moment for Njoku or not, but at some point he said, all right, I got to dedicate myself. And Stefanski used the word intentional. I'm going to intentionally become a better player, a better person. And you've seen that in his play on the field. You've seen it through his leadership skills. People calling him the best teammate on the team, and he is uncomfortable with that. He said there's better teammates, but he's certainly a really good teammate. And I just think it's night and day from a performance and just a personality aspect with him. And maybe that's just going from 20 to 28, right? Maybe that's just the natural development. But he deserves credit for it. And finally, I don't know where on the spectrum it is. Maybe it's last year, but I think you could make an argument that it's this year, that he's finally worth what they're paying him and worth the resources they've invested in him and living up to his potential. And, maybe it took too long, but the Browns are being rewarded for the patience that they showed time and again.
Scott Petrak, Elyria Chronicle-Telegram, as well as BrownZone.com, and I are going to step aside, take one quick timeout. Other side of the break, back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter from the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram, as well as BrownZone.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is Rico. We are one win away from clinching our second postseason berth under Stefanski in 4 years. Flacco's been playing pretty good in this system, but what concerns me is the lack of run game Browns possess right now. The play action won't be as effective if the rushing attack doesn't generate enough of a threat. Flacco had one legit interception versus the Texans. The other one was basically a punt. But my main concern right now is Dustin Hopkins. We definitely need him if we're going to make any type of noise in the postseason, if we qualify. Thanks. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, the lack of a running game is a concern. I can't, again, it's one of those things you can't explain. Play action has been really good, and they've struggled to run the football.
Yeah, and I saw a stat, I think it was a next-gen stat, that Jerome Ford did not face a loaded box at all. So that means defenses are respecting Joe Flacco. They're playing deep safeties, right? Because he can throw to, all parts of the field, sideline deep, that the defense is really spread out. But yet the Browns still aren't running it great. And I think the explanation is the changes on the offensive line. I know that Bitonio and Posick were back last week, so that helps. Bitonio's he's not 100% dealing with that back. You still have your backup tackles. I just think they're working through all of that, and it makes it difficult for the run game. And I think that's what we especially saw the week before. Last week when you get Bitonio back, you get Posick back, you think you're going to run it better. So it's interesting. Although the Texans had a really good run defense, the Jets are a better pass defense than run defense, but they're overall really good defensively. So this might be another tough one. I guess I'm saying I still have optimism that they'll figure it out. I don't think it's going to be a top 5 run game the rest of the season, but I think they'll figure out enough that they can have some success when they need to, and maybe control it at the end of the game when they need to, and they've been unsuccessful in that area. I kind of trust the coaching staff. I think if the line gets more time together, that's an area that they can improve.
All right, so Rich Eisen, NFL Network, also the Rich Eisen Show. Are the Browns with Joe Flacco as the quarterback real contenders?
You're going to even see Flacco get MVP votes. I know I might be talking crazy right now because he's only played basically a third of a season. But this team, with this defense and an offense that looks like this right now, with the run game supported by a passing game like this right now, receivers, tight ends, running backs out of the backfield with Flacco winging it around and looking like he's 23 again. This is a very dangerous team. Who the hell is going to want the Cleveland Browns coming in the AFC South winner in the first week? And then the Ravens potentially is the 1 seed. Want to see the Browns walk in there with Flacco in the divisional round? These things are real, people.
Scott, I can't argue. I said it at the beginning. Flacco gives them a puncher's chance against anybody. And you've seen it. Amari Cooper, the throw that he made where he went between 3 defenders, Marquise Goodwin. They haven't even tapped into the deep threat with Elijah Moore.
Yeah, I thought that Cooper quote last week when he called Joe Flacco a faith multiplier, that was my favorite quote of the year, I think. And it speaks to the team, it speaks to the organization, I think it speaks to the fan base. That there's a belief that they can do a lot with Joe Flacco. And part of that's because he's done it before, right? We talk about winning the Super Bowl with Baltimore, and he's a Super Bowl MVP that year. He's 10-5 in playoff starts. Like, all that matters, and the fact that he can throw it all over the yard. And I've lost track. There's 4 games. I think he's 7 out of his last 8 starts. He's thrown for 250 plus. So it's not like this is a fluke. He can do that. And, Rich Eisen mentions the number 1 defense. And, they had really special teams, like really strong special teams. They're going to have to figure that out. And hopefully they get Hopkins and Bojorquez back and they can go back to being, a really strong unit. But you can support the quarterback a little bit. You have Amari Cooper. You have David Njoku. Like, there's some things there. Plus, I think the coaching staff is coaching at a high level. So, they're certainly not the Super Bowl favorite. But would I rule them out in any matchup with any team in the league? No. And we saw them go into Baltimore and win. Different quarterback, different situation. But you know how division games are. They're not easy. The Browns know Lamar Jackson. I think they play Lamar Jackson better than many defenses do. So yeah, it's certainly interesting. And I'm not getting ahead of myself, and I'm not talking winning a Super Bowl. I just think they have a chance to win in a given week with Joe Flacco, because I think he's that good, and I think the rest of the team's that good too.
And again, he's a guy that wins. He has won as many games as anybody, including Tom Brady. He's tied with Tom Brady for road wins in the playoffs in NFL history. And that does matter. All right, before we go to break, let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. This is Jerry. Enjoy your show. Is there any way that the Browns can afford to keep the defense all together with the salary cap restrictions? And the same with some of the offensive players, too. Thank you very much. Bye.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, we've seen that they push it. They're quite happy and willing to push that down the road. So I would expect them to find a way to keep pretty much everybody they want relative to the salary cap here.
Yeah, I mean, from defense, so who are you talking? I mean, they already locked up Grant Delpit, right? None of your corners are due yet. It could be a discussion with Greg Newsome. You'll have to pick up, you would have to just make a decision on the fifth-year contract, or, the fifth-year rookie option. So that's a decision, but that wouldn't affect his status for 2024. Anthony Walker Jr., Sione Takitaki, those guys are free agents. You probably bring one of those guys back. I think you can probably bring them both back cheap, so you can see what you do there. And then the veteran defensive lineman. So, and then Zadarius Smith, right? He's probably the biggest name there. And I would expect him to leave, so then you're going to have to figure out something at defensive end. Unless the Browns are willing to step up and pay him, and maybe he loves it here. So I don't think it would be a salary cap thing. I think you're right. I think they're willing to spend. I think especially if they make a run here, how do you not spend? They expect the salary cap to take a huge jump. So I don't think this is going to be dismantled. Maybe you lose a piece or two. But I think you're going to see most of the guys come back.
Scott Patrick and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. On the other side of the break, back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. More specifically, Browns and Jets matchup. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrak from the Elyria Chronicle Telegram as well as BrownZone.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. Howard from Marin County. Great show. Again, feel really, really happy that the Browns are 10-5. The question I have for you is, Flacco is great. What will happen next year when Deshaun is healthy and Flacco wants to be with the Browns? Will the Browns have Flacco as a starter, or will they have Deshaun Watson as a starter? Great show. Take care. Can't wait for the Browns to win again and be in the playoffs. This will be just like it was when I was a kid in the 1960s. Wonderful. Thanks a lot. Bye.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, we've got this question. Joe Flacco, if he agrees to re-sign with the Browns, would be as a backup. Again, he's 39. I don't think he views himself as somebody that's going to take the pounding of a 17. Now, I could be wrong about that. But a guaranteed contract means guaranteed. Deshaun Watson will be their quarterback. Also, you wrote an article about his rehab, so take us through your thoughts on that Flacco thing, and then take us through what you wrote about his Deshaun Watson's recovery.
I don't know if Joe Flacco views himself as just a backup now or a part-time guy, or he thinks he can make it through 17 games. That's an interesting question. So I think that determines where he goes next year, right? Like, does he go somewhere where maybe you have a young quarterback that's drafted, but you want a veteran that starts the season? Could that be a spot he winds up in? Or is he looking to, come off the couch in November and see if he can do that again? Or does he want to go through training camp with the team he knows, like the Browns? Like, I think a lot of it will be in Joe Flacco's court to make that decision. I think he'll have offers that he didn't have last year. But you're 100% right about Deshaun Watson. I mean, you're not going to pay Deshaun Watson $46 million to not play. Like, they just won't do that. It doesn't make any sense. And I think that's even true if Joe Flacco wins the Super Bowl, which maybe it's a different conversation then. But I doubt it. I think that's just the reality of the situation. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Flacco, though, especially with this run he's been on. Could he come back content to be the number 2? Would the Browns want that dynamic where maybe teammates are thinking, hey, let's go to Flacco if there struggles with Watson? It could be dicey. So right now I would say I would not expect Flacco to come back. And then I went to Deshaun Watson's charity event Saturday. Downtown, he had a bunch of 300 kids. It was around Christmas around the world. It was a good event. And talked to him, he only asked a few football questions. But he said the shoulder's progressing. It feels good. He's still in a big sling. The right arm is still in a big sling. So he hasn't started throwing yet or anything. But he says he's progressing. He was excited to be around the team again this week. He'd been rehabbing in LA, and I think he's going to go back to LA. But for this week, he was here. I saw him in the locker room for a minute yesterday. So it's just, progressing from this season-ending injury.
All right, now let's talk a little bit about the Jets. Offensive line grades through Week 16. This is from Pro Football Focus. Mekhi Becton, 56.6. Their guard, Tomlinson, 54.3. Tipman, center, 59.3. Hansen and Warren on their right side of their line, both under 50. And Trevor Siemian, who will be playing quarterback, 149 snaps, 28.9. In short, offensive line has struggled. The quarterback has struggled. Siemian has struggled as well.
Yeah, they've had 12 different offensive line combinations. Becton has played right and left tackle. He's been hurt. He's a top 15 pick, I think. The same year as Jed Wills, 2020, but he's been hurt. He's finally playing a lot this year, but he struggles or has struggled. There's some upside there. Certainly, he's a giant human being. But it feels like they're vulnerable. And the Browns' front four has been really good. The pass rush has been good. They got to Case Keenum a bunch last week and affected the game. And, it's been 5 straight games without a sack for Myles Garrett. And I'd be stunned if on national TV, prime time, against a suspect offensive line with, I assume the Browns will have a lead at some point, if he doesn't get after Trevor Siemian and break that sackless streak and do it with, flying colors. Get a couple, whether it's 2, 2.5, 3. I could see a big game for Myles Garrett.
So one of the concerns, Breece Hall, their running back, young guy, really good, 95 rushing yards, 96 receiving yards. That's last week, Week 16, 2 touchdowns. So that's a guy that, you got to know where he's at because he has the ability to kind of ruin a game for a defense when he touches the football.
Yeah, I mean, they have 2 big-time playmakers, right? Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. And Hall had a huge game last week. Like he showed that, dual threat, obviously, rushing and receiving. He's a guy that Browns are going to have to shut down. To me, those are the 2 guys. If you take care of Wilson and Hall, you're going to limit the Jets and limit them to next to nothing, right? The Browns are really good on third down. The Jets are bad on third down. There's a chance for the Browns to put up one of those dominant defensive efforts where the other team barely moves the ball. But to do that, you have to be careful with Hall, and you can't let him get started. Can't let him get out in space. The screen passes, which I'm sure they'll run to try to neutralize the pass rush like the Texans tried to do early on Sunday. I would expect the Jets to do the same thing, and you just have to be aware of that and not let him get off for one of those long ones. Because if they make a couple big plays and hang around, that's the recipe, for the Jets to make this thing closer than it should be.
All right, before I let you go, this is another thing to keep an eye on. Since Week 1, Sauce Gardner has allowed 18 catches for 150 yards and no touchdowns. So that averages out to 1.5 catches and 12.5 yards per game. He's a really talented guy. Probably right now, he's probably the best cornerback in the league.
Yeah, he's really good and he's young, right? It'll be interesting to see how they use him. I know Robert Saleh talked about, hey, we'll let him follow some guys sometimes, even though they're more of a right-left system. Does he try to just take away Amari Cooper? And then the Browns have to look somewhere else. I'm sure that's what the Browns coaches are worried about, or at least have a contingency plan for that. Okay, if he's one-on-one with Cooper, do we go somewhere else and try to Elijah Moore needs a big game, or go to David Njoku a bunch, or whatever else that is, said Tillman, or do they say, hey, let's go see how our best guy does against their best guy and let Joe Flacco try to fit it in there? It's going to be an interesting matchup to watch. I don't know how, if we'll see it a bunch, if we'll see it only, some snaps, but certainly Gardner's a guy, and it's not just he's good coverage. He's a playmaker, gets his hands on balls. He's been really impressive.
Scott Petrick, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle Telegram, as well as Brownzone.com. As always, thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it very much, Scott.
Thanks, Dave.
Scott Petrick, make sure you check him out, Brownzone.com online. You can also check him out at the Elyria Chronicle Telegram. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Casey Kinnaman on the other side of the break. We continue talking Browns. Stay with us.
Come back to Go Forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Holiday gold! The $20 scratch-off?
It has 100 times multiplier. I could win $1 million.
Psych! I got merry and bright.
No fair.
It has a 200 times multiplier. I could win $2 million.
Game on the back.
Game on the back. Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve. Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FccLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey guys, Dan in Maryland here. Question about the run game. I understand, the injuries on the offensive line are a big part of it, but with Ford and Hunt both struggling to come up with meaningful yards, do you think maybe the team would benefit from giving Pierre Strong some more carries? And maybe he wouldn't be any better, but I don't think he'd be much worse either. Just maybe a different look or change of pace or something like that. Anyhow, happy Festivus. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Let's welcome in Casey Kinnaman from Dog Pound Daily Network 216. Casey, we've probably talked about it last couple of weeks. I am not against giving Pierre Strong a couple more carries. See if they need to do something to create a little bit more of a run game.
Yeah, I've been waiting for that experiment for about 8 weeks, and it's just, for me, it's almost hard to believe that now is when they would do it. They've kind of had this problem. It's like you look at the individual skill sets. Ford does have good long speed. He just takes a while to get up to it, and his vision's been spotty, to put it nicely. And he's been leaving meat on the bones. Hunt, I view as a different thing. Hunt, to me, is a short yardage guy who handles third down responsibilities, be that as a pass protector or a pass catcher. I leave him in that role. I don't mess with him. But if you could talk me pretty easily into switching Pierre Strong and Hunt's or Ford's positions, and letting them, what does it look like with 15 touches for Pierre Strong? But to me, there's obviously something happening, most likely on the practice field, either something Ford is doing or something that Pierre Strong isn't doing that's keeping them kind of locked into that position for this season. I'd love to see it. I just don't think it's going to happen this season.
Yeah, that's fair enough. By and large, there is a reason that things are the way they are. One thing that hasn't, been affected by the lack of the run game is the play-action game. So take a look. This is from Jake Trotter. Passing yards off play action since week 13. Joe Flacco, significantly more than anybody else in the NFL. In fact, almost double who is second. Flacco with 666, Trevor Lawrence 322, Carr, Prescott, Browning, and Tua all rounding that out. So that's the good news, Casey, is the lack of a running game is not killing the play-action game.
Yeah, you can see by those numbers, you're in Stefanski and Flacco's wheelhouse, running play action. It's something that Stefanski's excellent at dialing it up, and Flacco's excellent at pulling it off, and part of it's the opposing defense is like, you want the Browns to run the football. That's the easiest path of resistance. So the fact that Flacco can sell it, they want to believe it. You show them the apple, you got to hope you take the bite at the apple, and they do. You get people to suck up, and then Flacco is comfortable turning his back to a defense, turning around and letting it rip to all areas of the field. And they haven't had an efficient running game, and they're still prolific at it. That just shows you you just have to run enough to keep them biting at the apple, and that's what the Browns have been doing.
So Browns getting ready to face the Jets. The guy that the Jets thought would be their quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, with a special appreciation for what he's seen from Joe Flacco this year.
You realize how difficult it is when you get older, just to kind of stay in shape. If you're not working, I'm assuming he was working, but to not have any training camp, any off season, and to just come in off the couch and be able to play like he's played. I look at the first game he played, and I feel like they went right down the field on one of the first drives, if not the first drive, and he threw a kind of classic Joe Flacco one ball for a touchdown, and that probably got him going pretty good. But Joe is one of the prettiest throwers of the football I think that I've seen in our time. He's got kind of that longer delivery, but the ball comes off nice. You watch what Coop did in the game. I mean, he was fantastic. 265 yards receiving is ridiculous. But Joe has always been a great deep ball thrower, and he had a couple obviously dimes. Look at that, just like deep out. Here's the awesome throw, put some top on it, and then letting Coop just use his body and make a play. Always been a fan of Amari's, and happy for Joe.
And again, that's coming from a guy that is hoping to do what Joe Flacco did when he gets back on the field.
Yeah, you can see why he would appreciate it. I mean, in pro sports, and more specifically playing quarterback in the NFL, the vast majority of the time, you don't decide when you're done with the game. The game decides when it's done with you. And that just happened to Joe Flacco this offseason. The whole offseason came, no one picked him up, no phone calls. Months go by, he's still sitting there. And I'm sure that thought manifested, like, if I were to get another opportunity, here's how I would do it, X, Y, Z. And to see him get that opportunity and just be a match with the personnel and the coaching and him, it's been a beautiful thing, especially as Browns fans, to watch it take off like this. And an older quarterback would appreciate that, that. But for me, I'm a fan of Westerns. To me, this is even more than that. This is that scene in Unforgiven where there's a left for dead Joe Flacco walking up into the bar and gets to confront the team that left him for dead, and this is like, this to me, this is the ultimate redemption arc, you know what I mean? I just can't wait to see it play out. This is a perfect scenario.
Casey Kinnaman and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports for CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Holiday gold! The
$20 scratch off?
It has 100 times multiplier. I could win $1 million.
Psych! I got merry and bright.
No fair.
It has a 200 times multiplier. I could win $2 million.
Game on the back.
Game on the back.
Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back!
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE with Casey Kinnaman from Dog Pound Daily Network 216. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Say the Browns win the AFC Championship game this year. Would there be a way, and I hope there is, to get Joe Thomas signed up on our team so that possibly if we get to the Super Bowl, he could at least participate, maybe take one series of snaps? I don't care if we win or lose. I think it would be crucial to give that guy a chance to play in the Super Bowl with the Cleveland Browns. So let me know what you guys think, and is that possible?
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Casey, I don't think Joe Thomas would want to go take a series of snaps having been away from football on the offensive line. No, he's retired. He's in the Hall of Fame. He filed his retirement, so it's not possible. I get the thought, but I don't think Joe would want to go out and it's not like baseball where you can take a couple of swings. Yeah.
As cool of a Disney ending that would be for Joe Thomas, if my man had snaps in him, we needed you 6 weeks ago. You know, if we make it to the Super Bowl, we've gotten that far. It'd be a cool story. You know, but no, you need those. You're gonna need every one of those roster spots if you make it that far.
All right, Kevin Stefanski talked about the whole atmosphere he expects at Cleveland Browns Stadium tomorrow, with the Browns a chance clinch a playoff spot against the Jets.
Electric.
Chance to win the play.
Electric. Yeah, I can't wait. Our fans have been incredible all season long. I feel like I say that over and over, but I mean it. I can't wait to get down there. Our team can't wait to get down there. Just need them to behave themselves for most of the day so that they're able to be with us in the fourth quarter. Thursday Night Football, excited about this one, excited about this opportunity that we have. I know Coach Sala well. I know a bunch of their coaches. They have very good players, really good schemes. So you got to go to get your homework done during a short week. You don't have the same amount of practices. You don't have the same amount of walkthroughs, meetings, et cetera. So you really have to do a good job as coaches and as players of preparing for Thursday night. And then, as you know, getting your bodies ready for Thursday night is another challenge for both sides.
Casey, it should be a lot of fun and the place to be tomorrow night.
Yeah, it should be a very raucous environment. And I just keep coming back to the last time the Browns clinched a playoff spot, what the great Jim Donovan said. The only thing that's missing is all of you guys. Well, this is it. This is that moment. You get to be part of it this time, you know what I mean? So that place needs to be rocking from pillar to post. They're calling for a whiteout, you know what I mean? I hope everyone responds and make that. I mean, this is it, man. This is what you get in this for. If you're a fan and you've been following the team through all the ups and downs and mostly downs to get to this point right now and punch your ticket to the playoffs on your home field, go make the other team feel it. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna be excited to watch from 500 miles away. You know what I mean? I can't imagine what happened if I was actually in the stadium.
Yeah, and again, so the last time they clinched COVID, so there was no fans, just to reiterate that. So take a look at the Jets defense. It's really good, without question. PFF grades. Overall is above an 82, that's 4th. Run defense, 66, that's 12th. Coverage, 93.4, that's 1st. Pass rush, 80, that's 8th. Points per game, 21, 14th. Yards per game, under 300, that's 3rd. Yards per play, under 5, that's 3rd. Turnovers per game, 1.47, middle of the pack, 14th. I guess the bottom line is defense is really good, especially against the pass.
Yeah, no doubt that's a very talented defense. But when I look at the Jets, I just, to me, they're a guy trying to carry a giant couch upstairs by themselves with no one on the other end. You know what I mean? Like they're literally, their counterpart is the least efficient offense in the NFL.
Right.
We've been there as Browns fans. You know, you have a good defense, offense is nothing, and then you can only keep that going for so long before you eventually break. And you got to commend the Jets for putting up as long as they have on the defensive side of the ball, because they are very talented, and there's a lot of pride involved in that. To go out there and do your job, put good tape out there, and play for the players on your side of the ball. But it's going to fall short just because they don't have anything on the offensive side.
As I said last week, I said you can't lose to Case Keenum. You certainly can't lose to Trevor Siemian. Just you can't. There's way too much, and they did a good job. The only way the Browns lose this game is if they give them multiple short fields. I can't see Trevor Siemian, even with Garrett Wilson and with Breece Hall. They're not driving the ball 60, 70 yards more than twice. And twice is pushing it.
That's exactly where I'm at. Multiple short fields or even worse, defensive touchdowns or another kickoff return. It's going to, punt blocks. It's going to take a lot of fluky things to come together for the Jets to beat this Browns team where they're at right now. And with the Browns knowing what they're playing for too. To me, it's a simple recipe, man. You're facing Trevor Siemian. You take that Jets offense, you put him in a shoebox, and you keep him there. And you just smother them, and you just keep giving your offense as many opportunities as possible, because you do have an explosive enough offense. They will eventually put points on the board if you give them enough opportunity. You can't lose to Trevor Siemian. That's not an option.
And Jim Schwartz, he did exactly what you thought he would do against Case Keenum. I think it's more of the same. You're going to have to find Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome. One of you guys is going to have to be on, and Martin Emerson, one of you guys is going to have to be real good covering Garrett Wilson. Jeremiah Usu-Koromoa, they're going to screen the ball. So you go and you take Breece Hall, and everybody else, get after the quarterback.
Yeah, you have the players to get this done. There's no question. It's you know who the players are for them. They don't have a lot. You cover them and you attack with everyone else. And for me, it comes down to the defensive line. You just let them pin their ears back and go hunt. You be as aggressive as humanly possible, and you just let them get after Siemian, rattle him, and just blow him up front. You don't give them a shot. You just take hope from them right from the rip, and you just let them know. You look at that Texans game. Until it was a 36-6 game, they didn't cross midfield. That's exactly the type of effort you need this week. You just need to smother them and don't give them any hope whatsoever.
When you look at what the Browns need to do offensively, how does this shake out offensively? Again, we talked a little bit earlier about Sauce Gardner. That could slow down Amari Cooper if they choose to try to do that. Where do you go then? What is the offensive game plan?
Well, for me, I still take my shots with Cooper at Gardner. Cooper had his success at Gardner last year. Gardner had never given up a touchdown in his entire life, high school or college, until he met Amari Cooper last year in week 2. And Flacco's not going to shy away from it. But for me, this is David Njoku. This is David Njoku time. Let him own the middle of the field. You be physical through your passing game with David Njoku. And as we're gearing up for the playoffs, you need to start seeing other people get more involved. You need to see a Bell. You need to see a Goodwin. You want to see these other players. And of course, you don't think Elijah Moore's got something to play for in this game? This is the prime spot for him to kind of have his coming out party, prime time against his former team. Same thing as your quarterback. Seems like a perfect recipe for me.
What do you expect from? How do you expect this to play? What do you expect? How do you expect this to play out?
If it's anything less than a double-digit win, I'll be disappointed, to be honest with you. This is a team you should dominate. And is that lofty? Yes. And you can't just, let your guard down. But your defense is at home. We know how this defense plays when they're at home. And this is a night game. This is going to be elevated. Just the reaction of the crowd, the defense is going to feed off that, and it's going to rattle the Jets offense. So this is going to be a game that I think could get out of hand early, and you could just kind of maintain that. Now, we've seen what happened last week when you take your foot off the gas. And you understand why they took their foot off the gas, because they had a game in 4 days, Well, this time you don't. So I think that you might see this play out a little longer. And I fully expect this to be like a 27-7 type of affair.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I think the defense needs to set the tone and then just let the offense kind of go to it.
Yep, and then that'll let the crowd go wild. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of environment you're fostering here with the defense, with the crowd, in big plays, and just let it get raucous, man. This should be a night for celebrations. Punch your ticket to the playoff with a week to go. Like I can't remember this ever happening before. Not coming down to the very final week of the season, so you can take care of business this week and not have to worry about any contingencies past then.
Casey Kinnaman, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Casey.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Casey Kinnaman, make sure you check him out, Dog Pound Daily, as well as Network 216. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports 4CLE. No show at 4 o'clock tomorrow. We will have a game day special for the Browns-Jets game that will be posted earlier in the day. We'll see you again on Friday. Have a great night, everybody. We will see you Friday at 4 on Sports4CLE.